Everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the local review body. This meeting is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel following the meeting. My name is Councillor McLean, and I am the Deputy Chair of the local review body. Today we have present Councillor Ireland, Councillor Edlin, Councillor Morrison, Jerry Mahon, who is the Council's Chief Legal Advisor, John Burke, who is the Clerk, Mark Brand, and Michelle McGuckin. Mark is independent planning advisor to the local review body. He has no involvement in the processing of any planning applications which are subject to review. Do we have any apologies?
I have two apologies, Chair, from Provost Montague and Councillor Lundy.
Are there any declarations of interest with regard to the agenda items? The local review body has been asked to consider one item today. It's Review 2526, erection of dwelling house at 31 Whole House Terrace, Neilston, G76 3LT. Are we happy we've got sufficient information to determine the review?
Yes.
Okay. I therefore invite Mark Brand to speak upon the application. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that introduction. So the location of the case is in ward number 2, which is Neilston and Newtonmere South. There were two objections to the application, both from Mafeking Terrace. The reasons for objections were overshadowing loss of light, and that the design is significantly different to the rest of the terrace street and therefore impacts on the character of the area. As you know, objectors are given the right to respond to the appeal, but in this case no additional comments or objections were made. I will now quickly summarise the decision of the planning officer who decided the case. Members should note that this is an application for planning permission in principle. The submitted plans are therefore indicative. Should members decide to grant permission, a further application called the Application for Matters Specified in Conditions, which gives details on matters such as the siting and design of the building, the access and the garden space, will be required to be submitted for approval. The indicative site plan shows a 1.5-storey detached dwelling in an area of garden ground at the end of a row of terraced houses in Whole House Terrace. The footprint of the dwelling is approximately 8 metres by 8 metres, with approximately 100 square metres of garden ground to the front and side. A driveway accommodates 2 cars. While the submitted plans are indicative, they are considered to be a good reflection of where the house is likely to be located. This location is forward of the building line of existing properties along Whole House Terrace. This variance is so pronounced as to result in an adverse visual impact on the surrounding area. The Council's adopted special planning guidance for green network indicates that rear gardens should have a depth of at least 10 metres from the rear elevation of a house to a plot boundary. This is in order to maintain adequate privacy. Gardens should also have a minimum of 2 metres from house to the side plot of the boundary. In the case of a terraced house, the garden should be 50 square metres in size. The case officer considers that the size of a plot and position of the proposed house do not allow these measurements to be achieved. The proposal is therefore considered to be an overdevelopment of this particular site. The submitted floor plan is considered a good reflection of where windows are likely to be installed. The plan shows windows which are approximately 10 metres from the properties on the opposite side of the street. This distance of separation is insufficient to protect the privacy of the houses opposite, and the same would be true for any residents of the proposed house. The reasons for refusal therefore are: the proposal is contrary to Policy 14 of National Planning Framework 4 and Policy D2 of LDP 2, because the indicated position of the house is at significant variance with the pattern of development along Whole House Terrace. The second reason given for refusal is the proposal is contrary to Policy D1.2 of the adopted local development plan, because it does not reflect the character of the surrounding residences and the pattern of development. The size of the site is not capable of accommodating a residential property compatible with this locality. There is insufficient land to provide garden ground that is a scale and character compatible with the locality, and the proposal adversely impacts on the setting of the donor property. The third reason for refusal is that the proposal is contrary to policies D1 and D2 of the adopted local development plan, as the site is not considered capable of accommodating a dwelling house, which is comparable to the established development pattern and built character of the area. The proposal is contrary to policies D1 and D2 because the indicated position of the proposed dwelling house will adversely affect the amenity of the existing residential properties on the opposite side of the street through loss of privacy. And finally, the proposal is contrary to policy D6 of the adopted local development plan, as it results in overdevelopment of the identified site because garden ground commensurate with the indicated size of the proposed house and distances to the boundaries cannot be provided. I now summarise the statement of appeal which was submitted by the applicant. The architectural character of Whole House Terrace is defined by terraced housing to the either side of the street. There is extensive clutter of garages and sheds in the front gardens. Any new development at number 31 must sit forward of the established building, and as such it will appear in views when travelling along the terrace. However, the proposed dwelling has the potential to act as a bookend to the terrace and contribute positively to the established streetscape by adding diversity and interest in a street scene which is not of high architectural quality. In response to the question of plot size, the development site is similarly sized to the existing houses at numbers 31 to 37. The proposal's plot ratios are commensurate with the existing and should therefore be acceptable. In response to the insufficiency of garden land, the layout shows a garden of 100 square metres. This is in line with the requirement for garden space, which is 1.5 times the footprint of the house, in this case 60 square metres. When a car parking area is included, this adds a further 35 square metres of space. Together, this area exceeds the size of many gardens in Whole House Terrace, where sheds and garages take up much garden space. The appellant disagrees the proposal adversely impacts on the setting of the donor property. The donor property and its garden are in the process of being split into separate titles. The donor building is already compromised by the unkempt condition of the former garden. The dwelling house would improve the setting of the existing property rather than detracting from it. With regards to overlooking windows impacting on the privacy of facing properties, the appellant points out that the application is for planning permission in principle, meaning that the proposal can be amended by condition in the event of permission being granted. The removal of windows from the south-facing elevation or their replacement with obscure glass and the substitution of roof windows would ensure that window-to-window intervisibility is within acceptable parameters. The appellant acknowledges distances to the boundaries are shorter than the 10 metres specified in the SPG guidance, but considers that the 10 metre distance applies where houses are back to back. In this scenario, the rear boundary of the garden does not back onto another property but onto Whole House Bray, with the nearest house at number 15 some 25 metres distance. The appellant's submission includes the letters of support for the proposal from 2 people residing at Whole House Terrace and a petition signed by 9 people who give their addresses as at Whole House Terrace. Because this is a planning permission in principle, sorry, I should say that is the end of the appellant's case. Moving on to conditions, because this is a planning permission in principle, there are a substantial number of suggested conditions. They run to several pages. I will just headline the conditions to give you an idea. As the body members, you are of course entitled to amend, refuse, or add your own conditions. The standard condition that the development must be begun no later than the expiration of 5 years from which the date permission is granted. That's number one. Number two is the development shall not commence. Number two, the development shall not commence until an application for an approval of matters specified has been submitted to and approved in writing by the planning authority relating to the proposed site layout. So there would be a condition on site layout. Condition number three is that the development shall not commence until proposed floor plans and elevations of the dwelling house have been submitted and approved. Number four, development shall not commence until an application relating to the walls, retaining walls and fences has been submitted and approved. Number five, the principles of sustainable urban drainage shall be incorporated into the development. Number six, development shall not commence until the scheme that's number six, relate to the phasing details. These would need to be approved. Condition 7, for the avoidance of doubt, for required visibility display for the driveway is 2 meters by 2 meters. Then this would have to be maintained in perpetuity. Condition 8 would be that no surface water would run off the drive onto the public road. And condition 9 would be that there would be no construction work within the hours of 8 till 7 Monday to Friday and 8 till 1 on Saturday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Just briefly before I pass it, can I just get some clarified here? You said in section 7, terrace display is 2 meters by 2 meters. It's 2 meters by 20 I have here. What is the...
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Chair, sorry, that is my error. It is 2 meters by 20. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll pass it over to the panel if they have any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Chair. I note that this is an application for planning in principle. What would the status be, if I could ask Mr. Brand, if, for example, this was to proceed today, but there would still be ongoing oversight by the planning authority in terms of the more specific design aspects that would come forward? Is that the case? Can I just check what the position would be? Thank you.
The conditions which I've just to summarise today. So in terms of design specifically, if you were minded to grant today, the applicant would the planning permission in principle would be granted with a set of conditions. One of those would be relating to the floor plan, proposed floor plans and elevations of the dwelling house, i.e. the design of the dwelling house. So the plan that was indicative showed an 8 by 8 floor plan, 1.5 stories, and an arrangement of windows and internal configuration. That would then have to be sort of that or a detailed design would have to be submitted to the planning authority for approval. It could, of course, not receive approval for any number of reasons. So there is, but it's important that if you're minded to grant that, these conditions are included with the consent.
I would certainly agree if that was the thought of colleagues. I would suggest that these conditions are enclosed. Just to confirm, if it was granted, and who has oversight over those conditions? Is it planning officers alone, or would there be later opportunity for public consultation on the more detailed finalised plans, or indeed elected members' input?
No, that would be delegated to a planning officer. The review body, having sort of granted planning permission in principle, the conditions are then signed off by a planning officer, which is a delegated function.
Final question. It's relating to condition 7 with respect to the visibility display of the driveway. In many similar developments in the past, we've referred to motorists being able to enter and leave in a forward gear from parking spaces on the property, which, looking at the floor plan here, is clearly not the case. Whilst there's a requirement for 2 vehicles to have parking spaces, if 2 vehicles are parked, then the second would not be able to leave the property without the other also leaving the property. And we saw on the site visit today that it's quite a constrained street. There's not a lot of space, and it's towards the end of a cul-de-sac. Is there any view from the Planning Authority in terms of the suitability of the current parking arrangements proposed for the property? Thank you.
The case officer took the views on the roads service on this, and the road service did submit comments. The comments did not pick up on what you were referring to, Councillor Morrison, in terms of sort of entering and exiting the actual driveway. The condition for the 2 by 20 metre visibility display does come from the road service. That was their, they had 2 conditions for the visibility display, and surface water runoff. So I would take it from that submission that those were their 2 concerns, and the issue of access and egress for 2 cars did not form part of your comment.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Anyone, any other comment? Councillor Ireland?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, just a couple of things. I'm really pleased to see the visibility display is there. That became obvious on site. There is something, and I'm not sure. I want to make sure that it's covered by these conditions, and it's a matter that the applicant brings up themselves about the loss of privacy, and that the applicant has said that, and you brought it up in your report, that they could put in obscure glass and or at first floor level the substitution of windows with roof lights. Is that covered within the conditions that we have in front of us? Will that be part of that as it moves forward?
There's not a specific condition for windows and privacy. However, it would be covered by condition number 2, condition number 3, which relates to the proposed floor plans and elevations. So the floor plans and elevations would show, because it's a detailed application, would show the location of windows, roof lights, skylights, etc. Now, those would then have to gain approval. So it can be felt that obscure glazing is not a particularly strong way to protect privacy. There are issues going forward about, that potentially being removed and enforcement. So it is better to condition the building and the configuration of the building and glass windows within it than specific windows which are subject to change down the line.
Thank you, Councillor Island. Councillor Edlin?
Regarding the parking and driving and roadway, when I was there today, my car is probably the smallest car you can buy with this tightest turning circle. And you can't drive straight through that road that leads to where the building is going to be. You have to turn round because there's bollards in the middle. So the road is not a through road. You have to turn round. I could not turn my car as it stands before the building works without going into the private property relating to the newer building. So I don't feel that any of the arguments relating to parking are really valid, because at the end of the day, the way it is at the moment is such that it's not suitable for the purpose of the roadways for the house under current regulations. So all you're doing is possibly slightly improving it by having the space where the parking spaces is to manoeuvre around. Maybe not, but even if it's not, it's no worse than it would be at the moment. So it's not dangerous, in my opinion. The second thing I wanted is the comments relating to the changing the, I can't remember the wording you used, Mark. It was the way the style of the area, basically, the other houses, fitting in with the other houses. But there is, if you look at the houses that are there, at the end of the street, there is a building there that is obviously totally different on the same street. So that is changing the local, how could you put it, the local view that you see. So it's not entirely just the terraced houses that are there. You have to consider what is slightly beyond. So that's all I want to know. But I wanted to know, is the privacy aspect a statutory matter, or is that an optional matter about the 10 metres and stuff?
Privacy is a policy in LDP2. I think it's in policy D1. Is part of our planning policies. So it would be a material consideration. The distance is not set, but we would, the planning case also would consider round about between 15 and 17 metres as sufficient to provide a suitable level of privacy.
So, in other words, if it's less than that, the officer would reject on those grounds. I realise that we can override that, but the officer would reject.
Depending on the circumstances, yes.
Well,
there would be reasons to refuse an application if it was, well, in this case, 10 metres. At that distance, privacy does come into it in terms of like overlooking, and that would be an absolute valid reason under LDP2 to refuse an application.
There's a certain amount of vagueness in what you're saying, it seems. You're saying subject to conditions and subject to this and that, other things. So it doesn't sound quite as clear cut as you're saying.
You have to look at case by case. I suppose in this case you would look at consider the windows which exist in Mafeking Terrace. Think about the terrace, how close that was to the site, the number of windows. I didn't mean to be vague, but it's not cut and dried privacy, because there could be a case, for example, just to give you a case where a new window was proposed or a building was proposed, but it was looking onto the side elevation of the neighbouring house, which had one small window, say in a utility room, for example. So it was the overlooking privacy aspect would be limited, because that would not be a room where there would be a lot of use. If it was something like a bedroom or a living room, obviously that would be different. That would be a space which is inhabited by people regularly, and the privacy issue would be far more significant.
I see. Well, thank you for clarifying that. That's slightly different from what I heard the first time. And as far as the area is concerned, I mean, from what I've heard today, the proposal to me seems to enhance what's there, not detract from what's there, in my opinion. But that's a personal opinion and something we've got to weigh up. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Edlin. Mr. Mann, just on the papers, and we discussed it up there, on the boundary to the house, there's only a 1 metre. Now, I'm understanding is it should be 2 metres, or would that be part of a planning condition if it was to go in that it would be 2 metres, or can it stay at 1 metre? I understand that the neighbour didn't have any objections to the proposal, but I'd just like a bit of clarification on that. Would it have to be 2 metres, or can it be a metre?
Our policy is 2 metres from a building to a. The condition number 3, what was it? Requires that a detailed plan showing the location of the house, not the floor, the actual location within the plot, would require to be submitted and approved. So again, the indicative plan showed a boundary of 1 metre, but that is an indicative plan. The detailed plan would require approval, and again the case officer would look at that indicative plan and make a decision on that. Sorry, not look at the indicative plan, look at the detailed plan and make a decision on that.
So even if we pass this today, they could submit the full planning application and it could be rejected because the conditions haven't been met. Is that my understanding right?
They would have to meet those.
Yeah.
As it's phrased, development shall not commence until they have approval for those the detailed plans. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, panel. Anybody have other questions? Or are we happy to accept the planner's proposal that it's rejected, or does anyone want to put in a motion that it's proposed?
Better switch that on first of all. I was just going to suggest that I think the proposed conditions put before us, first of all of those would be adhered to, and I think that this would allow the planning officers sufficient control over what would proceed from today's proceedings to ensure that the end product, if any, is congruous with the streetscape of the area and meets required safety.
I'm happy to second.
So, Councillor Miller, you would propose passing, and Councillor Edlin, you would be seconded it.
Is anyone otherwise minded? So the motion is to overturn the appointed officer's decision and to grant planning permission in this case, and that's all our business today, I believe, Chair.
Just as long as the conditions are met.
Yeah, subject to conditions outlined.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thanks for your time here today. Thanks very much. Cheers.